Welcome to another edition of the KJV Journalist, bringing you in-depth reporting and analysis from your King James Bible, a Genesis 18:5 media presentation. So friends, we're back. All right. I want you to know that I don't slander biblical characters or narrative lightly without incontrovertible proof. Not only will we trace the Holy Fathership from Seth to Shem in this video, but we will tie their religion to the modern-day Holy Roman Catholic Church, verifiable by the KJV Bible, Google AI, and, my favorite, simple math. So let's dive right in, shall we? Today's title is Fever Dreams number 5D, and the working byline is Holy Father Shem and the children of Seth / Sheth. Let's do some review first to catch you back up to speed, and for those who may just be joining in. In my podcast, Fever Dreams number 5A, The Not-So-Secret Religion of Seth, we were introduced to the concept that Seth was the first Holy Father, and that his followers were referred to as children. It was the mad prophet Balaam, the one with the talking donkey, who literally could only speak the words that God put in his mouth, who gave us this prophecy. Numbers 24:17. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, that would be Jesus Christ, in the latter day. And a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. So let's knock down the subjectivism straight away, shall we? This is not a reference to the Sons of Tumult, a Moabite terror group. It really doesn't matter, though, because we will trace the lineage of the Moabites as a group belonging to the children of Seth. Some say it is a different Seth, and there's only one Seth in the Bible, friends. Only one. Still, others contend it is a reference to Seth, S-E-T-T, a god figure in Egypt. Sorry, no dice there either, friends, as the Hebrew word for Set, S-E-T, or Set, S-E-T-T, is Na-than. And the Hebrew word for Seth is Sheth. There was no confusion there, friends. They didn't mistake anything. The bottom line is that Balaam is giving us proof, a proof verse, that the religious followers of Seth and his religion are called children. Very important. You'll see in a minute. After all, Seth is Adam's third son, and every human on the planet has a piece of Seth in them. And Jesus isn't coming back to kill us all, friends. Now, we are going to learn something. Then we're going to take that knowledge and solve the riddle of Genesis 9, verses 18 through 27. Genesis chapter 10, verse 6 has a prophecy clef, and the sons of Ham are Cush and Mizraim and Put and Canaan. Genesis 10, verses 8 through 10. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. You got a double witness there, friends. It's important. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. You don't have to believe me. You can use Google AI to verify what I'm about to tell you. Nimrod was a Sumerian, and the Sumerians were real pieces of work. You know, the Sumerians, who fringe theorist Zecharia Sitchin has written 11 books about, them being hooked up with the Anunnaki, and that would be fallen angels to you and me. Honestly, I don't condone Stitchin, but the Sumerians bore the fruit of that relationship and were hip deep in human sacrifice. Not just ceremonial sacrifice, where the king died, his servants and wife were killed. No, but the full-blown child sacrifice as well. You can ask Google AI about that as well, and it will verify it. Now, the Assyrian genetic block, that is the biblical patriarch line, which I verified in Fever Dreams number 5B, were not some limp-wristed bunch of little girls by any stretch of the imagination. The religion of Seth managed to get the whole world terminated by God with the exception of 8 people. God commenting in Genesis 6, verses 12 and 13, "And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth." Now, we will solve the riddle of Genesis 9, verses 18 through 27. So, friends, most of the Christian world thinks this set of verses about Noah getting drunk and being naked, and others think it is some concealed grift by Canaan directed by Ham to abscond with Noah's wife, creating a situation much like Lot and his daughters. But you and I have the keys now. So let's walk through it, shall we? Genesis 9, verses 18 and 19, prophecy clef, "And the sons of Noah that went forth from the ark were Shem, and Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the 3 sons of Noah." And here's your timing clause. "And of them was the whole earth overspread." There's your timing verse, that this is taking place at the end of Peleg's days, and God is finished, or almost finished, dividing the 72 nations into their races and languages. It would be right around 340 years after the flood, and very near the end of Noah's life. Genesis 9, verses 20 and 21. "And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard." Both very important words. "And he drank of the wine, and he was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent." Now, from previous episodes, we know it is a big no-no to adopt the term husbandman, which is exclusive to the father, and apply it to oneself and then start up or manage a religion. Noah begins to do so, and the result is spiritual drunkenness and nakedness. We know it wasn't the way of God taught Adam, or he wouldn't be drunk. We know that it is not the religion of Seth, as that would make no sense. The only other conclusion is that it is the Sumerian religion. The Sumerians had a pantheon of over 3,000 gods, and with so many fallen angels to choose from, who can guess to what god Noah had decided to cavort with? Now, who introduced Noah to the concept? My money is on Ham, who is Nimrod's grandfather, due to the odd curse arrangement that takes place in verses 24 and 25, when God intervenes and wakes Noah up. The thing is, what did Ham hope to achieve? If Noah had even just presided over a human sacrifice, one, his life should have been forfeit under the Noahic covenant. And Ham was maybe scheming something along those lines. Get his inheritance early or a bigger share. I'm sure that Ham, Shem, and Japheth were all about God's way when they stepped off the ark. But here it is, over 300 years later, and Ham has strayed. But so did Shem and Japheth, who had returned to the religion of Seth. I don't think it worked out quite like Ham intended. Genesis 9, verses 22 and 23. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment. We'll get into that in a minute. Laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. Verses 22 and 23 confirm that Shem and Japheth are not operating according to God's way. The word garment is another religion or a modification of God's way. The word backward, repeated twice here, also always refers to turning away from God's way. And only God can cover your sin, friends. And they saw not their father's nakedness, only confirms that they were not in God's way, just like every other lost person who sees nothing wrong with the many abominations that existed then and now. Genesis 9, 24 and 25. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son, that would be Ham, had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, and a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. You know, friends, according to Isaiah 29, you just don't come back from spiritual drunkenness of this level under your own steam. It takes God intervening, just like he has done here in verse 24. Noah fingers the perp, Ham, but he can do nothing to him. But he then, through fatherly decree, farms Ham's son, Canaan, out to Shem and Japheth. Justice. Genesis 9, verse 26. And he said, Blessed be the Lord, God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. I struggled with verse 26 for years. It didn't seem to fit. Noah is alive and in his right mind. And you pray for your lost relatives and hope that God makes a move in their lives. I am sure he realizes Shem and Japheth are out of the way with God. Just as Jacob probably realized there was something not quite right about Dan. But as a parent, you always hope. Genesis 9:27. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Folks, this is a prophecy because as we will find out, in just a bit that Shem is the Eastern Father, or Pope. We have placed Shem back into the religion of Seth, but now we have to link him to the title of Holy Father and give him religious followers called children. Remember when I said simple math would play a role in this matter? Take a look at the genealogy above me and note that Shem lived 600 years and died 2,159 years after the fall of Adam. Then note that Eber lived 464 years and died 2,188 years after the fall of Adam. Simple math tells you that Eber outlived Shem by 29 years. Looking at this and knowing that this was not an adoption of necessity for orphans, and I have had someone tell me that once. Genesis 10, verse 21, prophecy clef. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder. Even to him were children born. Anyways, it can only mean one thing. That Shem is the spiritual or holy father of the people who live in Eber. I wouldn't ask you to believe one verse. Micah is a Jew from the tribe of Ephraim in northern Israel. He worships idols, and if you read the whole account, also sacrifices children, besides practicing loose Judaism. Judges chapter 17, verses 9 and 10, and Micah said unto him, Whence comest thou? And he said unto him, I am a Levite of Bethlehem, Judah, and I go to sojourn where I may find a place. And Micah said unto him, Dwell with me, and be unto me a father and a priest. And I will give thee 10 shekels of silver by the year, and a suit of apparel, and thy victuals, or victuals, whatever floats your boat. So the Levite went in. Now, I know what you're thinking, that I said earlier it was the Sumerians who sacrificed children, and you would be right, friends. But the Assyrians liked the concept so much that they incorporated it into the religion of Seth. They did that sometime between Asshur and Terah, and we will cover that in a minute or two. Like I said earlier, Jacob had to look at Dan and say, I don't know, Lord. Well, these fine Danites show up armed to the teeth at Micah's house and promptly relieve him of his father priest and all his idols and his child sacrifices, including the fancy little carriage that they were carried to the ceremony in. Judges 18, verses 18 through 21. And they went into Micah's house and fetched the carved image, the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. Then said the priest unto them, What do ye? And they said unto him, Hold thy peace, lay thy hand upon thy mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for thee to be a priest unto the house of one man, or thou to be a priest unto a tribe and a family in Israel? And the priest's heart was glad. And he took the ephod, and the teraphim, and the graven image, and went in the midst of the people. So they turned and departed, and put the little ones, the children, and the cattle, and the carriage before them. So God told Adam and Eve, Don't eat it, because if you do, you will die. The devil said, "Nah, not gonna happen, my peeps." Well, we all know what happened, don't we? Telling God by your choices that you don't believe him has consequences. Genesis 7, verse 21. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beast and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. What part of God saying, I killed them all, but ate of them, do you not believe? Genesis 11, verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and one speech. I can hear my little DEI hand-wringers out there already, murmuring about how skin color does not define race, and there's only one race, and that is humankind. Problem is, and you can verify this with Google AI if you choose, that ethnicity is joined at the hip with language. You can change an ethnicity's language, but it takes a very, very long time. Of course, we now know that ethnicity is also joined to genetics. Genetics being the engine by which an ethnicity and or its language is changed. The bottom line is that those 8 that came through the flood were of one ethnicity and one language. What part of God saying all 8 were of the same ethnicity and by that all of the same genetic block do you not believe? I would like to point out something first. God loves to put things in reverse order quite a bit in the Bible. It's not always a hard and fast rule, as there are exceptions. But with a little diligence, if there is an exception, it can be verified another way. And that's how you know it's an exception. And it isn't just limited to genealogies, but often with timing verses as well. A fact you need to slip into your toolbox because you will need it now and in a minute. Genesis 10, verse 25. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. Genesis 10, verse 5. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided into their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Genesis 10, verse 32. These are the families of the sons of Noah, and after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So we have an exception here, with the triple witness of the verses dealing with the term divided. The timing verse coming in the middle, when obviously the first use and the last use cannot be realized until the timing verse has played. Needless to say, what part of God saying, yes, those 8 people who I carried through the flood were all of the same in ethnicity and language and were divided at this specific time and place, do you not believe? So now we explore the next exception. Genesis, chapter 11, verse 10, prophecy clef. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Genesis, chapter 10, verse 22. And the children of Shem, Elam, and Assur, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. Genesis 10, verse 11. Out of that land went forth Assur, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah. Of the children of Shem, Arphaxad is the oldest, but listed third. Assur is the second oldest, and confirmed by archaeology as founding Nineveh around 6000 BC, making Assur the only one capable of meeting God's 107-year timeline for the Tower of Babel before the division of Peleg's time, making the peoples that traveled to Shinar and began building the Tower of Babel Assyrian, and locking down the narrative that all the pre-flood patriarchs were of the Assyrian genetic block. If you have trouble believing this, watch future broadcasts as we run down the children of Shem, both biological and religious. And in every case, the evidence supports the Assyrian genetic block being the original format for mankind. The other three sons being Elam, Aram, and Lud, coming after the division of Peleg's time, and we will cover them in a future broadcast. Genesis chapter 10, verses 6 through 11, prophecy clef. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sabbathah, and Ramah, and Sabbateca. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Assur, and builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah. Remember, in our last segment, we found out it was Assur who probably led the rebellion at the Tower of Babel. And after God came down, he went Splitsville and built Nineveh. Now, in these verses, we have no exceptions except in the lineage of Cush, and everywhere else is typical of God's way. The first is the last, and the last is the first. So when we solved the riddle of Genesis 9, 18 through 27, we realized that the exchange was the end of life patriarch blessing and prophecy of Noah, putting it at the end of Peleg's days. Very similar to the one Jacob gave his 12 sons. Canaan was in attendance, as he was Ham's oldest son, which would make Cush Ham's youngest son. Then, Nimrod being listed last would mean that he was Cush's last son, but he would not be born until Cush would have grandchildren from Ramah. This puts Nimrod after the division of Peleg's time and verified by the archaeological founding date of the city of Erech, his second city in his kingdom at 4500 BC, 1500 years after the founding of Nineveh. The rest of the cities have never been found, except for singular mention in the Bible. But Erech is confirmed Sumerian, which means it had to be after the division, or couldn't be Sumerian. Do not confuse Babel and Babylon as one city or even one location, as it is entirely possible that Nimrod did found a city on the ruins of Babel. He did not found Babylon, however. The honor of founding Babylon goes to Amorite king Hammurabi, thanks to Noah's patriarchal end-of-life blessing curse against Canaan and the Canaanites. Doesn't that sound like a bad boy band? But anyways, which the Amorites are one of those Canaanites descended from Canaan and would remain unaffected by the division of Peleg's time. That's right, friends. Babylon was founded by the Assyrian genetic bloc, just under a different name. As far as who learned child sacrifice from whom, we can't really tell. Or if both Assyrian and Sumerian observed such practice. Only the Lord knows. The Sumerians would fall to the Akkadians around 2300 BC. And the Akkadians were Semitic people, meaning that they were also probably from the Assyrian genetic bloc, descended from Shem, but no one knows, and they lasted only about 2 centuries before they collapsed under their own weight. Folks, I know I'm running long, but it can't be helped. We are at the 32-minute mark, and I will try to wrap this up in the next 8 minutes and give you your promised connection to the present-day Holy Roman Catholic Church that I promised at the beginning. Everybody agrees that the Ur of the Chaldees was under Assyrian control from the beginning, at least until Abraham's time. Maybe not so much after that. Genesis chapter 14, verse 13, prophecy clef, and there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abram. Do you see the word Hebrew there describing Abraham? That is being used 400 years plus before anyone who could actually call themselves a Jew walked the face of the earth. The words Jew and Hebrew aren't interchangeable. Hebrew means across the river and or eternity. Also, do you see where it says that Abraham was confederate with Mamre the Amorite? Remember, we just learned that it was an Amorite king who founded Babylon. So, who lived across the river Euphrates from the Ur of the Chaldees? And who could be referred to with the connotation of eternity? Genesis chapter 10, verse 21, has a prophecy clef. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born. That would be the Eberites, my friends. And now you see that Abraham was indeed of the Assyrian genetic bloc. So when referring to Jews as Hebrews, you are alluding to the fact that they were derived from the original Assyrian genetic bloc, which goes all the way back to Adam, and why the Antichrist will be Assyrian, the prophets noting as well. As promised, your connection for the religion of Seth to the Holy Roman Catholic Church. Out of the Ur of the Chaldees, the Holy Apostolic Catholic Assyrian Church of the East would form. The apostles claimed in that title were Bartholomew and Thomas. The Church does not align with Catholic, Oriental, Orthodox, or Eastern Orthodox religions. They are organized like the Catholic Church, but instead of a pope, they have a patriarch, with bishops and priests and deacons under them. The priests are addressed as Father. They practice Nestorianism, which is the belief that the divine and humanity were separate in the body of Christ. The problem with that doctrine is that Jesus must be all God and all man united in the same body, or he lacks the credentials to redeem you under the rules for near kinsman redemption. The reason the church is not aligned with the Catholic Church is because they refuse to elevate Mary to a position of deity, which in my opinion doesn't really matter, because their doctrine already prevents you from being redeemed. Not to worry. In 1552, the church would schism, and the Chaldean Catholic Church would split off and fully embrace and come under the umbrella of the Holy Roman Catholic Church. The brothers, Shem and Japheth, with the religion of Seth, once again fully united under the banner of the Holy Roman Catholic Church. As always, friends, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Amen.